Hey everybody, this is Nicholas Rogers with the Big Timber Lodge coming back at you today with a very special live stream from the Centennial State with a good friend of the channel, Miss Ava Flanell, who's now Representative Ava Flanell. Thank you so much for coming on the Big Timber Lodge live stream to talk about how we are going to save Colorado. For those of you that aren't familiar with Representative Flanell, I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself.
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. For those who haven't heard of what it is that I do, so I've been in the firearms industry since 2013, started off as a firearms instructor. Then eventually I got my own podcast. I've had it since 2017 up until kind of recently just because it's
Mhm.
going to be really difficult to do everything. But and then let's see, I'm a sponsored shooter, federal ammunition, lots of gun sponsors. You name it. It's just been like, I don't know, very active on social media.
Yeah.
But then within the last couple of years, I've gotten very active within politics because I think it's just so important. When I saw that they were coming after our rights here in Colorado, it started with the assault weapons ban bill the first time.
Hmm.
And I was like, this is going to really hurt my family's business. And so I decided I needed to do something. And someone suggested that I go up to the Capitol and testify. I'm like, well, how do you do that? And now look at me.
Yeah. I, well, I mean, it's kind of crazy for me to be here sitting next to you doing a live stream because, as you mentioned, you were doing the podcasting since, 2017. And I've
Mhm.
been watching Ava on social media since then. And shout out to my good friend Reloading Weatherby here on YouTube because I told him I was going to be interviewing Representative Flanell and he got excited. I think a lot of guys get excited because you're not just, how can I say this? You're not
You're not just a gun bunny.
exactly. You're not just a gun bunny. She's actually really good with firearms. She's incredibly smart. She is really, really loyal to the Second Amendment. And boy, does she love Colorado. And that's why we brought her on the Big Timber Lodge live stream today. And I am really excited to jump into this. I mean, how's your personal New Year's looking for you before we get into the politics of Colorado? Because we just ticked over into 2026. Are you expecting better things for yourself this year compared to last year? Or, I mean,
I think okay, so it is gonna be difficult to beat last year. So for example, I was looking at my pictures from just this past, 12 months, and I was thinking to myself, okay, I got engaged,
mm-hmm,
which was big. I developed a very strong relationship with God. I've gotten a
mm-hmm,
lot more religious, and that's probably the best thing that I could have ever done. I got 3 awards.
mm,
So I got an award from Gunners of America and Power 2A for Women of the Year. I received the Charlie Kirk Defender of Freedom Award from Colorado State Shooting Association, and then what was it? The Defender of Liberty from Second Amendment Foundation. Became the Vice President of Legislative Engagement for Colorado State Shooting Association, and then also became a state house representative. So it is going to be, and I was like looking through pictures and I'm like, man, I talked at so many different events. This year I think is going to be probably one of my most challenging years
mm-hmm.
because of my new role. And I know it's going to be hard work.
Yeah.
Already I'm playing catch up. I got sworn in on October 29th, so I'm definitely trying to catch up with all of my colleagues, and I'm a firm believer that you learn the rules of the game and then you play better than anybody else. And so that's what I've been doing is I've just been busy now, touring my district, meeting with constituents, meeting with local businesses within my district, meeting with stakeholders, getting to know about all of the just different things. A lot of people, their concern was, okay, yeah, she's great on the Second Amendment, but is she going to be knowledgeable about other things? And is she conservative when it comes to all these other topics? And I will say, I've been a Republican since I was, 18. I've voted conservatively my entire life. And I'm surprised by how much I know about all of these other topics, whether
Mm,
it's like air pollution, healthcare. You name it. But like I've been meeting with all these people, and I'm like, I actually do know a little bit about that.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's been enjoyable. It's been a lot of hard work, and the session hasn't even started. every day I have something going on, which is why when you asked me to come on and do a show with you, I was like, okay, how about the day after New Year's? Because I know that I have that day off.
Hmm.
But for the most part, I mean, even Christmas Eve, I was working.
Yeah. Yeah, you're always working. I
I
mean,
know.
whenever we get to chat, she's always going to meetings or on another phone call or taking emails, and she's out here trying to save the state. And before we get to how you became, a House representative for the state of Colorado, you did leave Colorado for a while. You went off to, I believe, New York,
Hmm.
and then you came back. Can you just explain to us like what your experience was leaving the state and then wanting to come back?
Absolutely. So born and raised here. I love Colorado and I've traveled so much, especially with my career. I was traveling at least once or twice a month going to different states. And I always come back to thinking, man, Colorado is such an amazing state.
Hmm.
But when I was 18, graduated high school, I wanted to go to college in New York City. And both my parents were, they're originally from New York. And so we would visit pretty often. And I just always loved New York. And I thought, like, oh, that's just going to be so cool, because I grew up in the country, literally in like a modular trailer, which most people don't realize. So people might think, that was born into money and stuff, but everything that I have, I've done so, I'm self-made.
Yeah.
Everything that I have, I've earned. But so yeah, here I am, 18 years old. I'm like, I want to go to school in New York City. I only applied to one college, which originally was Marymount of Fordham University. It's an all women's Catholic school.
Hmm.
Went there, got like straight A's my freshman year, obviously, no distractions. And then I ended up transferring to Fordham University because they were going to be actually shutting that school down. It's a
Oh,
long
really?
story. And so I transferred to Fordham, ended up graduating in 3 years, double major. I graduated in 2008, which I know I'm aging myself. A lot of people think I'm in my 20s. I'm not. Um, it's funny. That actually came up a
Yeah.
lot when I was running. People were like, she's too young to run. They all thought I
Yeah.
was in my 20s. But I ended up graduating in 2008. The economy was just total crap. I ended up getting a job bartending. I think I bartended for like 10 months,
Mm.
which was one of the best things that I could have ever done because you learn to talk to anybody. And
Hmm.
communication skills is just so important. And then I ended up landing a job with the New York Yankees and started off in sales and then ended up in legal and finance. I really wasn't planning on coming back anytime soon, but unfortunately, my mom passed away.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so you know, I didn't want what she worked hard for with the family business to go to, to go to waste. We always joked that my dad was the face of the business, which for those who don't know, my dad is Dragon Man. He's the face of the business, but my mom was always the brains. And so I knew, my sister at the time was still in college. I didn't want her to drop out of college. My dad didn't even know how to work the washing machine or that we had a microwave. So I
Mm.
ended up moving back home with him. And that's when I got involved in the firearms industry
Mm.
because I was just determined to learn as much as I possibly could about firearms and, learn how the books, whether it was acquisition, deposition, different types of guns because I worked the counter. And I also realized that there weren't a lot of resources for women who wanted to learn about firearms. And so I figured, all right, well, maybe I'll become a firearms instructor like my mom.
Hmm.
So within, I think that same year, I became a firearms instructor, not thinking that this was going to lead to a career, but just thinking, okay, well, I see a need for it. I'm here anyways. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do long term. I'm just here to help my family. And it's crazy how like one thing leads to another.
Hmm.
And
It really
so,
does. It really does. And like I was saying earlier, brains with the beauty.
you're sweet.
And so, I mean, it's interesting. I feel a lot of people that aren't really educated on firearms when they actually start to dive into
Hmm.
the history of the Second Amendment, why we have these protections in place, and this inalienable right granted to us by God that
Hmm.
our founding fathers saw fit to put into the Constitution that says shall not be infringed. It is one of the most important rights for us to actually hang our hat on, so to
Yeah,
speak, in order to protect. Because without the Second Amendment, the rest of the Constitution will go away really quickly. That's my personal opinion. A lot of
absolutely.
scholars say the same thing. So I'm glad to hear that's how you found the love. I'm sorry that your mom passed away. I remember that tragedy. That was horrible.
Hmm.
Um, but I want to know a little bit about your love for Colorado and what led to you actually becoming a representative? Because we understand your love for the firearm industry and how it was a family business for you. And that's what kind of snowballed you into where you're at today with your current business. But I want to know about your love for Colorado and what brought you to becoming a representative.
So, one, I think Colorado is a beautiful state. And, you know, you ever just catch yourself sometimes driving and you look at the mountains,
Mm-hmm.
or you look at, whether it's the sunset and it's, pink skies and kind of purplish, and you're just like, man, I live here.
Yeah.
Like it's so beautiful. You know, there's things to do outdoors, there's things to do indoors. There's no humidity, which for somebody who has long hair, I mean, I when I lived in New York City, I remember having to go to like this like, I think it was like in Chinatown, and they Japanese hair straighten your hair, and it's like chemicals that are probably going to give me cancer later on in life.
Yeah.
Hopefully not, but um I mean, it's such a beautiful state, and I'm really tired of Democrats taking the beautiful states. I mean, what are we left with? No
Right.
offense, but like Texas,
Yeah.
I mean,
Texas. Yeah.
you look at California, California is a beautiful state.
Yeah. It
And
is.
that's, it's completely taken by Democrats. And so I also am just a firm believer that, there's lots of people moving. They say, okay, I've had enough. I'm done with Colorado. I'm moving to a red state. But the problem is that if we just continue to leave, pretty soon there's not going to be anywhere to go.
Yeah.
And I'm a fighter. I have always been a fighter. I think that, the work that I've done speaks for itself. I have fought my way through and have been put in situations where a lot of people thought that I was going to fail. And so I can't just give up so easily and just be like, all right, you know what? I just don't see Colorado turning around. I'm going to throw my hands up you know, and just give in and move. As far as running, so I would be lying if it didn't cross my mind a few years ago. So when I first started, I was like, maybe one of these days it would be kind of cool to become, get into politics and become like a House rep or a senator or something like that. The more I got into politics, the more I realized how hard these people work, on both sides, but more so the Republicans because they're outnumbered. And it's funny because Rep. Puglisi, whose position I took because she resigned, I saw her at the Lincoln Day dinner a few months previously before I put my hat in, or my name in the hat. And she said, "So when do you think you're going to, run?" And I remember joking. I said, "Oh, I don't hate myself enough." And now I'm like, "Cool, look, look where I'm at." So I mean, it's kind of funny, but I really didn't have plans. Like this was not part of
Mm.
my life, my whole life goal. Really what happened is, this is probably gonna, I don't know if I even, actually, you did hear this story because you came to my swearing in, but
Mm-hmm.
so I'm going to tell people. So, as I've mentioned, I've gotten a lot more religious this past year. Like, I've
Mm.
really developed a strong relationship with God. I can thank my friend Stephanie Crott from the Machine Gun Nest for that. But I noticed even a month prior, so I felt this calling to do something more. And I thought that maybe it would be something along the lines of, maybe empowering women or something like that. I wasn't sure. So I remember asking my Bible study, all the women in my Bible study, if they could just kind of pray on it. The Saturday before I put my name into the race, I remember just feeling this strong pull to do something. And I remember asking all the women in my Bible study, it's crazy, this feeling that I feel. I don't know what it is. And I asked them to pray, like, hopefully I just, God reveals what it is. That the next day, that Sunday morning, I'm just sitting here and I'm like, man, I just feel so anxious. I hate the way that I'm feeling. And so I pray out loud and I tell God, use me however you want, but please
Mm.
reveal what it is because I'm feeling restless and I'm ready to get to work. And then I go off and I was actually at that moment, I was in my gun room and I was organizing things, and I get a call from another House representative, and they say, Rep. Puglisi is going to resign. Before she does, just a heads up, but we think that you should put your name in to take her place.
Wow.
And I was like, man, this is
Mm.
not, I mean, this was not what I wanted to do. So I said, all right, well, let me talk to my fiance because clearly it's going to impact his life a lot. And so I get off the phone and I tell him, and he's like, you're going to do it. I already know you're going to do it. Just do it.
Thanks, Brian.
And I'm like, well, yeah, but I mean, I'm going to be working like late hours. Like my life's going to be like over. And he's like, just do it. And so I prayed out loud and I said, all right, God, if it's meant to be, then I'll win the vacancy committee. And sure enough, I went through the first vacancy committee, and I say first because there was two. So I go through the vacancy committee, and originally there was 8 people that threw their name in the hat. 5 of them dropped out the day of or the night before, and it boiled down to myself,
Mm.
this guy Joe, and another guy named Andrew. First vote, I got the most votes, but you need 51% or 50,
Yeah, yeah.
51% of the votes. And so I hadn't received that. And so we had to do a revote. That first vote, so the guy who received the least amount of votes, which was Andrew, he dropped out and he endorsed Joe.
Mm.
And I was like, cool. So both of these guys are ganging up on me. And I'm like, well, that's it. I'm probably not going to win. And I still won. Well, a few days later, I think actually it was like a week later, Secretary of State calls me and they say, hey, we have declined your application
Mm.
because somebody named Josh put in a complaint saying that the bylaws weren't followed. And I'm just like, well, what does that mean? So long story short, the bylaws had just changed. They went into effect a few months previously, and precinct leaders, the people who vote for you to be in this position, were not given a 10-day notice.
Mm.
So we had to go through it again. So I thought, okay, well, I assumed, we're just kind of going through the process again to check off a box. I get notified that my opponent, Joe, is like ramping it up, knocking doors, making phone calls. And so I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll do the same. And then there was a third guy who he didn't run in the first vacancy committee, and his name's Troy.
Mm.
And he appeared out of nowhere. Um, and I found out he was endorsed by Scott Bottoms. Scott Bottoms is a House rep. The first time, the first vacancy committee, Joe was endorsed by Ken DeGraff. I mean, I thought I had pretty good relationships with both of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one thing I will say is like going into this, I already know who everybody is on the Dem side, on the Republican side, both in the House and the Senate, because I spoke to a lot of these people. I've worked with them. Scott Bottoms, I worked alongside with him because I was part of the 2A caucus. And so I was kind of taken back that they were endorsing my opponent, considering, all the work that I've done. But I was just like, all right, whatever. I just got to stay, like just concentrate on, this vacancy committee. And sure enough, same thing, kind of similar that happened last time is I received the most votes, then it was Joe, and then it was Troy. And
Mm-hmm.
same thing, Troy drops out, he endorses Joe. For whatever reason, these guys did not want me to win. And then second vote, I won, which between them, if the voters did do as they had wished, like I would have actually lost, but I did
Mm.
win. So I have no doubt that I am supposed to be here. I really, truly feel like God placed me here. And I mean, who knows? Maybe I pass a bill that's going to impact somebody that I never meet,
Mm-hmm.
or I've, a few other plans up my sleeve as to how to change Colorado and do things a little bit differently. There are times where I question, okay, am I the right person? But I mean, if you look back in the Bible, God didn't pick the best people. A lot of times it was like people that you're like, there's so many better people to pick. And I think that if anything, maybe it's kind of good because I can relate more to voters and
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on the other side. I'm not a career politician,
Yeah.
and I'm just like a concerned citizen that I want
Hmm.
Colorado back. Clearly, I mean, we've had Democrats have been in the majority for over a decade, and look where that's gotten us. I mean, we have more people leaving Colorado than we have entering Colorado,
Yep.
and I think that that's incredibly problematic.
It really is. And I wouldn't say that you're not the best because I know here at the Big Timber Lodge, a lot of my viewers, even before you filled the vacated seat by Rose, have been saying that you should be running for politics. And we've discussed you multiple times just because of your strong 2A support and also the fact that you're smart when it comes to Colorado politics. And so I think you are where you need to be. And you have the full support of myself and the Wolverines. Wolverines! That's the viewers here at the Big Timber Lodge. Um, for your reelection. And one of the things that I would like to see, because when I first moved to Colorado in 2001, I came out here to college at Western State in Gunny, and it was very much a live and let live mentality.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that drew me to Colorado, besides the beauty. I loved being outside, but it was a college. I would go shooting with the hippies and the jocks, and we'd all hang out together. And then we'd get in a fight with the cowboys from the local, farms at the local honky tonk. And then we would all sit around and drink together and have fun. And everybody seemed to get along back then, a little over 2 decades ago. And then we had the Gang of Four with the hostile takeover of Colorado, which, if you haven't watched Rocky Mountain Heist, it's linked in the video description below, as well as the Blueprint, which is the book that describes how the Gang of Four took over Colorado. I highly recommend that. Um, and then as I came back to Colorado on and off, I moved back here in 2009 for a brief time with the military. I was like, man, it feels different than it did in 2001, but I still wanted to move back here. And then I was able to transfer from California, where I was stationed, to Colorado permanently in 2013. And by that time, I was like, things are really getting different, but I still love this state. I
Yeah.
really love this place. And, and I was lucky enough to meet my wife, who's a local. She's a native to Colorado Springs. And my children were born here as well. And it is worth fighting for.
Hmm.
And the way that we fight for it is by voting for people like yourself. And I can attest to the fact that you truly have found God this past year, because I've known you now for a while. And I want to talk a little bit about your swearing in ceremony, because you brought your own Bible to that swearing in ceremony. I saw it, and it had little, like sticky tabs in it where you had made notes and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like, she uses her Bible, which was super impressive to me. And so, can we talk a little bit about your swearing in ceremony? Because that was amazing. I brought my wife, I brought my mom, I brought my two daughters, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Actually, I think I brought the most amount of people to a swearing in ceremony than, I mean, I don't want to say ever, but there was a lot of people that came, and
Hmm.
everybody's like, "This is just so great. It's great to see so many people involved." I joked, I think it was like at 8 a.m., 8, 9 a.m. or something like that. And I got up there and I joked and I was like, "Don't you guys have jobs?"
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was so cool to see, just all these people come out and support me. And I had two of my girlfriends fly in from Maryland, and Stephanie, who really got me involved, who opened my eyes to God, and then Patience,
Hmm.
and they're both just so amazing. Um, yeah, it was great. And so, anyways, Julie McCluskey, who I don't know if you noticed this, but she didn't tell me to put my hand on the Bible. She just told me to raise my right hand.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I thought that that was actually really interesting,
That is
because
strange.
normally when you get sworn in, you should put your hand on the Bible
Right.
and like swear that you're going to uphold the Constitution. And so I thought, well, that's weird. But I put my hand on the Bible, raised my right hand, repeated after her. And then afterwards, she said, okay, well, if you want, you can thank people for coming. And instead, I got up there and I shared my experience with
Mm.
God. And it was also interesting too, because there was quite a few Democrat House representatives that came too, that I was
Yeah.
surprised to see. And then of course a lot of leadership, on the Republican side. And yeah, it was just, I mean, I figured, you know what, I'm going to take this moment to talk about God, because He is the reason why
Hmm.
I'm here. And I have no doubt that He's going to be holding my hand every step of the way through this, which is why I should probably be terrified, but I'm actually not.
Mm.
I'm not terrified. I mean,
No.
people have come and said like, "Well, aren't you scared that, maybe your past is going to come up, or this?" One, I don't really think that I have much of a past,
Mm-mm.
but like if I did something stupid in high school, okay, well, you know what? That has made me who I am today.
Right.
I really don't have anything to hide.
Right.
And even again, if anything comes up, like I don't care.
Yeah.
We can't let fear prevent us from doing the right thing and from
Absolutely.
taking Colorado back. And one thing that I constantly think about, so my friend Lena Mikulek, who actually donated in my campaign just a few days ago, which was really sweet of her, she has always said, fear is a liar and a thief.
Mm.
And that is so true. How many times do we allow fear to hold us back from doing something? And people are like, I don't want to get into politics. I could only imagine the skeletons that come out in my closet. But you know what? You have to. I mean, if we really want to make a change, we cannot let fear hold us back.
Mm. 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 Amen to that one. That is something too, and like, I think it's triumphing over fear, but also being able to have faith.
Yeah.
To have faith that things are going to work out in a just way, in the way things are supposed to work out, as long as we're putting in the legwork to make it get done. And I want to talk to you about your intentions, but I also want to know, like, how can I help? How can my viewers help to take this state back and bring it back to its former glory?
So, I mean, there's a lot of ways. Right now, I mean, so right now I am playing catch up as far as, raising funds for a campaign. I did actually hit my goal. This is going to be my first filing, and I wanted it to be pretty big, just
Hmm.
because I'm already facing a primary opponent who is that guy Troy Vanderhole, um, which is just so interesting because nobody knows the job that I'm going to be doing. I mean,
Right.
maybe I do a fantastic job and I am able to change things around. So without giving me the opportunity and you're just already going to primary me, I think it's just a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I understand that I got this position due to a vacancy committee, so I wasn't technically elected. So with that said, I'm not really that upset about it. I
Yeah.
understand. And then I'm also facing obviously a Democrat opponent, but I'm not really worried about that. But I mean, if you guys wanted to donate to my campaign, I would greatly appreciate it. We'll put the link down below,
Hmm.
or trying to think, or if you guys follow me on social media and you click on the links, I mean, you'll find it just with a little bit of search. Also, if you're in Colorado, oh, they already put my
Hmm.
yeah, Ava, my website. Which don't pay attention to the website right now. It is actually getting redone and it should actually go live tomorrow, the newer website. But also, I mean, any volunteers, if you guys are in Colorado, helping me get the word out. I will say, I mean, I have name recognition, but it's in the gun industry and then it's at the Capitol. It's not so much here locally as much in Colorado Springs. So just, volunteers that'll go door knocking or, I mean, really anything, feel free to email me. I mean, anybody who wants to help, I will gladly put you to work and I mean, I will appreciate it so much.
Hmm. Well,
So,
you're articulate. You're a female, which I think is actually going to help us out here in Colorado too, and not just in your district. But if we can help make you more of a face for the Republican Party to maybe try to persuade voters,
that we're not crazy.
yeah, to persuade voters that are in other districts that are unaffiliated, because that's a big thing I want to talk to you about too,
Yes.
is the amount of unaffiliated voters that we have here. But you're easy to talk to,
Hmm.
you're a female, and I think that that's probably a huge part of the pie that we need to figure out how to capture
Yeah.
in order to win this state as the female unaffiliated voters, especially because you are pro 2A and you can talk about it in a non-extremism type of way and
Hmm.
why it makes sense to support those policies that you support versus policies that we see coming down the pipeline from people like Tom Sullivan or Julie Gonzalez. And thankfully, we don't have to see them after next year.
I know.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I do want to talk about the unaffiliated and or the Republican that hasn't voted in years because they've lost faith in the party.
Mm,
And I think that, they're again, I would rather have any Republican. I mean, even okay, Scott Bottoms, who clearly for whatever reason doesn't like me, I would rather have him in that district than any Democrat. And I
mm,
will fight hard for any Republican because at this point we really need to flip seats. We're not going to get much done unless we flip seats. So I will keep any Republican, whether they like me or not, I don't really care. I'm here to make change. And if you have something personally against me, it is what it is. I don't really care. Um, so one thing that I will say, so there's a lot of people that are unaffiliated. I believe it's 50% of Colorado
mm.
or like
Yeah,
49% or
40,
something like
49.
that.
Yeah.
So the reason for that is because the DMV right now is if you go and get a driver's license, they will automatically just mark you as unaffiliated and then you have to go in and make that change. The problem is a lot of people want to be unaffiliated. And I've been talking to so many people. I was actually going to have like a town hall for people who are unaffiliated or just Republicans that haven't voted in a long time, hear them out and find out, okay, what is it? A lot of people messaged me. I mean, inundated with a lot of people that said that they'd be interested in attending. I was thinking about January 10th. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to have a conflict, so I can't do it. But these are the things that I've come to conclusion. So they don't feel like their voice is being represented. They're more moderate, sort of middle of the road. They said that until the elections, get better and they don't feel like are rigged, they're not going to vote. I'm trying to think what other things they've told me. At the end of the day, here's what a lot of people don't realize, and I plan on using my social media platform to really kind of bridge that gap between the Capitol and the people because the problem is that most people have no idea what goes on in the Capitol and they don't even know really the markup, like the structure of what the House and the Senate is comprised of. So, or I'm sorry, or also they don't feel like Republicans are working hard enough for them. So in the House alone, there are 22 Republicans and there are 43 Democrats.
Mm,
In the Senate, there are 12 Republicans and 23 Democrats. So if you are even middle of the road and you think that one side or the other is too extreme, your voice is not being represented because it's Democrats have the majority.
Right.
So it's actually in your best interest to vote Republican until we are able to bring more, bring balance back to Colorado. It's also, sorry, I got distracted.
I know you
There's something
distracted us.
that, it's also, if let's say, okay, the elections are rigged,
Hmm.
which I don't discount that. I'm not saying that people are making that up, but we also gained 3 seats in 2024.
Right.
I say we make it too big to rig.
Mm.
So, I mean, look at HD 16, Rebecca Kelty. We won by 3 votes. So, for anybody who thinks, like, well, my vote doesn't even count, or my vote, whatever, they're just going to rig it anyways.
Right.
If that was the case, like, why would we gain 3 seats? And that helped us significantly. That took out the supermajority in the House. So it's really in everyone's best bet to vote Republican right now, whether you are, very conservative or not. If you're middle of the road, your voice is not being represented.
Facts.
And then in addition to that, so I've learned so much. I swear, like the past 2 months have just been information overload. So I didn't realize, I guess I didn't think about how you get your name on the ballot. So you would think that because I'm the incumbent now, if I want to run again in 2026, that I could just say, all right, I'm going to run in 2026 and my name will automatically go on the primary ballot. That is not the case.
Mm.
So you could do one of two things. You can petition, which you have to get about 1,000 signatures. I'd have to get 1,000 signatures from my district by Republicans in my district, or I could go through assembly. The assembly is comprised of about 50 to 200 people, depending on how many people show up.
Wow.
I think this is really interesting because it's kind of like gatekeeping to some degree. So if people are upset with, who eventually, like who ultimately is becomes a Republican, become a precinct leader. You can do so by, if you're a registered Republican, you can, and if there's an opening, or even if there isn't an opening, if you don't like the precinct leader within your, precinct, you can run against them and you can change that. And so that's another reason why it's probably not a good idea to be unaffiliated. Because
Mm.
some people might think, well, I'll just continue to be unaffiliated, but I'll vote Republican. But that also has its consequences. So, I mean, again, it's all of this stuff most people do not know. I've asked some of the most like smartest people that I know, hey, how do you think I would get my name on the ballot?
Hmm.
Most people don't think about this stuff.
Right.
And, another thing is the Republican Party is they're divided a little bit. It's like the super extreme versus, I guess, somewhat moderate-ish. I mean, everyone's pretty conservative, but the super, I don't even want to say the names because I didn't even notice that. I didn't know that the party was divided
Hmm.
until I was running. It was like the week before, and they're like, well, what side of the party are you? And I was like, what do you mean? I'm a Republican. Like, I don't, I'm like,
Yeah.
how is it that
It's a
I've been
weird question.
I'm like, how is it I've been in politics now for the last few years and I'm just now hearing about this? But the I guess super ultra conservatives feel like, okay, if you petition, you buy your way onto the ballot. I'm not paying. I'm actually going to be doing both. I'll do petition and I will be going through assembly because, for one, I've never done it and I'd
Hmm.
like to try both. But I think that it's actually, it's all volunteers. So if you guys are interested in volunteering and knocking doors for me, I'd greatly appreciate it. But I will also be knocking doors starting tomorrow.
Mm.
And I think that it's beneficial because you're knocking on people's doors within your district. You're getting to know them. You're giving them, like a palm card that has your information on it. So it's name recognition. And then maybe they'll remember you in June when they go to vote and like, hey, I
Right.
already met that woman, or I know what she's about.
Right.
I went to her town hall or something like that. And then there's the assembly, which is, like I said, 50 to 100 or 200 people. I don't think that that's really that significant.
Mm. Yeah.
And then people who usually end up winning aren't really electable. I know I just talked your ear off
Yeah.
and I just went off on
No,
this
no.
huge tangent. But
That last one's
I
a
mean,
doozy. That's a dinger right there. I mean, I had a whole bunch of collective thoughts during that thing. I mean, yes, the Colorado Republican Party does have infighting. I don't want that to discourage though the viewers that are
mm-mm.
watching this
No,
because
absolutely not. Because I
yeah,
mean, I already said because if you're unaffiliated and
right,
your voice isn't being represented, it's not because
yeah,
Democrats have the majority.
yeah. But I want to point this out. The reason why there's a fracture right now in the Republican Party is because people are fed up with the way the old guard Republicans have been running the state, and they feel like, hey, they're not doing enough. And that's why we're seeing people like Ava Flanell stand up, and who's going to be running for reelection because she wants to see the correct change in the Republican Party and in the state as a whole. But I just also want to point out, too, I don't know how much of the tea we can spill, but the Democrat Party of Colorado is fractured
They're actually worse.
a lot worse than the Colorado
Yeah.
Republican Party, to the point where we have two separate caucuses with the Progressive Caucus and then the Opportunity Caucus. The Progressive Caucus is the Democratic Socialists of America, which is the Colorado
Like,
Communist Party.
yeah.
That's literally Lorena Garcia, Bacon, Bo Snecker, Julie
Woodrow.
Gonzalez, Woodrow, people that are literally card-carrying communists who feel the state isn't progressive enough and that our Democrat leaders aren't progressive enough. And so then you have the Opportunity Caucus, which is supposedly the moderate Democrats of Colorado, which is people like Governor Polis, Michael Bennett, John Hickenlooper. And I mean, as a conservative or as a Republican or as an independent or a moderate, you look at those people and you're like, how are they considered moderate Democrats?
Hmm.
And realistically, folks, the Democrat Party right now is pulling apart at the seams. And this is a great opportunity for us to pick up more seats because of that division that's going on with the Democrat Party. There's always going to be slight infighting amongst your party in no matter what state you're in.
Hmm.
So I don't want you to get discouraged from that.
Yeah.
And you brought up a very good point. We did pick up 3 seats in the last election for the House, and I think we're primed to pick up more because looking at the favorability of people like John Hickenlooper, Michael Bennett, and also Polis, all three of them are underwater. They're all in the negative when it comes to their popularity polls, and people are just sick of the way that the state has been running. And then we have on the other side of the Democrat coin, do we lose? Okay. No. On the other side of the Democrat coin, we have the Progressive Caucus, which is people like Julie Gonzalez, who is trying to primary John Hickenlooper and push more of the extreme ideals that is destroying Colorado. So I think we're primed to take this up. Now, you mentioned, how do you get onto the ballot? Because I have a lot of good viewers. I know Mark Tisdale's in chat right now. I see him right there. Mark's talked about running for Scott Bottom's seat because Scott Bottom says, hey, I'm going to be the governor. I'm vacating my seat. How do people that are watching this, if they feel they're a potentially good candidate, go about actually, running in a district that we need somebody to run? I mean, do you know any districts off the top of your head, or can you give a little bit of advice for people like Mark, who's in chat right now, on how they can run?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I would say the biggest thing is don't hesitate to do it. Anybody can do it. I mean, I feel so confident that if I can do it, you guys can absolutely do it. And we need good candidates. We need everyday people. We don't need career politicians.
Mm,
We need people that actually have like our best interests in mind, who just want Colorado back, or they want to take Colorado in a better direction, because the direction that it's heading, I mean, it's an issue when there's more people leaving Colorado than they are moving here. We went from being one of the top 5 states to live in to now it's like bottom of the barrel.
hmm
It's incredibly expensive. The crime is just out of control. And I think that, I mean, it's people don't want to live here. It needs fixed.
Right.
And so I would say contact somebody within the party.
Right.
You guys can reach out to me if you think, if you're interested. I'm more than happy to navigate that for you, or to see if there's somebody who's not running. I think that there is somebody in Scott Bottoms, Priscilla Teagan, she's running, and I think there's somebody else as well. But then there's other seats or other districts where we don't have anybody running, and
hmm
it's in very close districts, very vulnerable districts where a Republican can easily take that seat, but it's an issue when we don't even have a Republican there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
or they're just, I mean, I personally, I feel that we should run a Republican in every district,
Yes.
even if it's really, even if it's like in the middle of Denver, because how are we supposed to know even where we're gauged, get a feel for like, oh well, that is really blue. Maybe it's not as blue as we think.
Right.
And there's only one way of knowing. And then on top of that, I think that the whole like purity test, I am
Yeah.
so over it.
Right.
I'm so over it, because let's say that there is somebody that, would be really great for Denver, and they're moderate. They're not super, super conservative, but they're a hell of a lot better than any Democrat. Run them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put them through some purity test and say, "Oh, well, because you don't think that you don't believe in a or you're for abortion, or you're uh you think like whatever, I will take somebody who I agree with maybe 55% of the time or even 40% of the time than somebody that I don't agree with at
Yeah,
all. And that's what
absolutely.
we need to stop with this stupid purity test. I got put through a purity test. So the second committee, the second vacancy committee that I went through, it got so ugly. There is so much mudslinging. And I will say I've prided myself. I did not go negative on anybody because one, I figured, okay, well, if I don't win and that person wins, they're going to be my representative, and I
Hmm.
want to have a relationship with them. So I was just like, I'm not going to go negative, even though there was some stuff that I found out in the process. Um, they came up, there was Colorado Right to Life. They came up and said that, like, they tried to insinuate that I wasn't pro life
Right.
because I didn't fill out their stupid survey, which was just a ridiculous survey. I mean, they want you to be like against like birth control, for
Oh
example,
wow.
and it's not like birth control that's like killing babies.
Yeah,
It's
it's
birth control that's preventing you from getting pregnant. And
or
I mean,
helps with labor.
again, some conservatives can come after me for this and say that, oh, what do you mean? You believe in birth control? Well, yeah, I'm very
Right.
much like, okay, cause and effect. If you are, how do we prevent abortions? Well, by preventing pregnancies. And in a perfect world, people wait until they get married to have sex. That's not
Right.
really happening as much, unfortunately. So I didn't fill out their survey. They came after me and tried to say like I'm not pro life. And then RMGO came after me and
Hmm.
put out like a text message to all of the voters and said that basically insinuating that I'm not pro 2A, which was like laughable. And said that because I didn't take a stance on SB 086, which I will say at that point I had just gotten engaged. The first time that it went through the committee, I was in Florida, so I couldn't even have shown up
Yeah.
anyways. But it's like also people forget that everything that I've done these last couple of years has been voluntary.
Yeah.
So that's like expecting somebody who, voluntarily cleans your house
Yeah.
to be like, well, you didn't clean my house this time. And it's like, well, I was just doing it
Yeah.
just to be a good.
Yeah. That.
So it was just, it really, that was eye opening. And I was like, well, this is what I have to look forward to in politics. But again, it should not discourage people from getting involved. I will say, I mean, yeah, you have to have thick skin,
Yes. Yeah.
but
Politics is not for the weak of heart, and
no.
like you've got to be able to take the punches, right?
Hmm.
That's a big thing that I would definitely encourage anybody that's thinking about getting into politics is people that you think are going to be your friends end up slinging mud at you. People that you think are going to be your enemies end up stabbing you in the back even more. And so you just have to be prepared for that. But we need to get I would say a rainbow of people that are still loyal to the
Hmm.
Constitution because you can be a liberal constitutionalist. I know that sounds kind of weird, but you can also be an extreme conservative constitutionalist. You can be an independent or libertarian, but still believe in your constitutional rights and not just the federal constitution, but the state constitution. And I would much rather like Tom Sullivan is term limited out. Thank God.
Yeah.
He is the biggest thorn in my side when it comes to pushing every town for gun safety. Michael Bloomberg's, pet anti 2A projects into Colorado, which I've documented that fully. He's terminated it out. So this next year is going to be this year is his last year in our state Senate, thankfully. I would rather see a moderate independent, a moderate Democrat, a moderate Republican that might be a little bit softer on issues that I don't necessarily agree with,
Yeah.
but that's still going to uphold the Constitution and vote against violating our civil rights here in Colorado than saying I'm only going to support somebody that's extreme and only believes in my views and is hard right like I am.
Hmm.
That's not the way that we win the state because the latest statistics that I've seen is that Colorado is losing more people than we're gaining, and unfortunately, a lot of the people that are leaving right now are multi
Republican.
generational Coloradans,
Hmm.
right? And so, and the last statistic that I saw is staggering. It's like over 60% of the state is no longer actually like multi generational Coloradans. We're down to like, 39% or something like that are multi generational Coloradans that are still here because we've had such a massive influx of people moving to the Front Range from other states. And so we've got to figure out a way to court these people. I mean, we can't just kick them out as much as I would like to. I mean, I'm not a native myself, but we just can't kick out these people that have, moved in here like locusts and try to take over. We've got to figure out a way to court them so that they can vote for what I would say is old school Colorado ideology of that live and let live mentality that we had, where people respected who you were, but they also respected who you were. And then you were able to live your life. Like I said, I used to go shoot guns with hippies, jocks, cowboys, and all these people when I was in college out here. And I didn't necessarily agree with some of these people's viewpoints or these people's viewpoints, but we all got along. At the end of the day, we were able to just live and let live, and I'd love to see that come back. I don't know, Ava. So before we wrap it up, because this has been an awesome interview, and I'm so thankful that you came on the show. I mean, let's get some words of encouragement for the viewers here, and also some of your aspirations for your intentions as our next duly reelected House representative.
Absolutely. So I will say, there's a lot of people that just think Colorado's a lost cause. I don't feel that way. I mean, especially when half the voters are unaffiliated, that doesn't mean that they're Democrats.
Right.
I mean, that alone should just give us hope. Like they might be unaffiliated, but they might be, voting Republican or more conservative. I think that I can make quite the difference. I know we are outnumbered in the House and the Senate, but my what I'm really planning on doing is I'm going to take to my social media, which I have a very big following. A lot of people who are local in Colorado. In fact, I was looking at my donations last night, writing thank you cards. There's so many people that are from Colorado.
That's awesome.
That I mean, majority of them who donated to me are in Colorado. And so, what I'm going to do, because I do think that there is this huge gap between the capital and the people, is I'm going to take to social media and just like put out little videos. Like, so the committees that I'm on, judiciary, which is like the worst, but I actually am really excited to do that because I have this personal vendetta against the judiciary committee because that's where all the gun bills have gone. And then I'll be on the education committee, but I'm going to go live and be like, yeah, this is like the bill that we had to vote on. And there's just some ridiculous bills that I think that if people actually knew what we were voting on. So for example, one of the things that's coming up this year, not gun related, but somebody wants to push a bill that if you were molested as a child and then you molest a child as an adult, you should have less punishment than a normal person, a regular person who was not molested.
What?
Like you can't even make this stuff up. Half the people have no idea what's
So
going on though. Yeah, so if you were molested, it should somehow be okay for you to molest a child, another person, because
what about the victim? What about the child?
it's just yeah, it's like, it's just like a constant snowball
So
effect.
perpetuating. Oh
But
God.
most people they don't know what's going on. I mean, even the other day I went to the doctors and I was telling my doctor like, yeah, I'm actually the state house representative for this district. And I asked him, if he paid attention to politics, and you could tell he was incredibly brilliant. But he's like, well, I pay attention to stuff that's going on nationally or internationally, but not so much local, which just blows my mind because
Mm-hmm.
local politics are probably more important than anything. And I think also, people might vote they might vote due to what is going on nationally. So like if they're not happy with what's going on with Trump or what
Mm,
Trump's doing,
fair point.
they're going to as a result vote Democrat. But honestly, national and local are just so different that you can't allow that to impact your vote.
Okay.
I mean, people, I don't know. So really, I want to wake people up. I may not be able to pass all these bills or stop these atrocious bills, although I do have some good bills up my sleeve. My biggest thing is I'm just going to try to educate as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm on the other side and I see what's going on, which has been very eye-opening, I'm hoping to just bring more attention to that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, folks, I want you guys to know that Ava is the only actual politician in Colorado that I openly endorse as the candidate that I would say, hey, if you're a viewer of the Big Timber Lodge, you need to be supporting Representative Flanell. There's no other candidates out there right now that I've given that endorsement to. And that's because I know her and I know she's a real person and what she talks is how she lives. And that's super important to me. One of the things that I would like to do is ask you to be able to support her campaign in the way that we're going to do this with the Big Timber Lodge, because we created a hoodie with a local Colorado business call. And in the hoodie says, Colorado is my Alamo. And it has a picture of the Alamo in front of the Rockies, right? And the Colorado flag. I had 21 viewers say they were going to purchase it. We've purchased, only sold about 7 so far, but we had 25 of those hoodies made. It's linked in the video description below. Any of the profits that we make here at the Big Timber Lodge selling those, we are going to donate to your campaign, and we will continue to figure out a way to support Representative Flanell in her reelection process, and then also how we can help strategize to help take this state back. She's got a great brain on her. She's surrounded by really good people. I trust the people that she is working with. And thank you guys for tuning in. So Ava, do you have anything else before we part?
I really appreciate it. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everybody else's support as well. I definitely would not be able to do this without, just like the kind words, and just there's so many people that are behind me, and it's really given me the strength to do this. So I do want to thank you all for that.
Yeah.
But also just don't give up. I'm telling you, I feel so strong about, we can bring change. It may not happen overnight. It may not happen this election, but I think that the pendulum is definitely going to be changing. It's going to be swinging back in our favor. And so I just, I hope that you stay patient, try not to move. I know that Colorado is incredibly expensive right now. I do have some bills that are really going to, hopefully impact that. I mean, to be honest with you, I think a lot of people are expecting me to come out with all gun bills, and I don't even know if I'm going to be running a gun bill this year.
Right.
Because it's just going to be a messaging bill. It's going to be a waste of a bill. I only have 5 bills. There's so much that I want to change and help people, and so do I want to waste that, or keep that bill, my idea, for maybe the following year when
Right.
maybe we have a little bit, a few more Republicans and a chance to pass it. But my biggest focuses are going to be affordability, public safety, and less regulation, because I used to think, that Democrats were coming after just the gun business.
Right.
After talking to all of these other businesses, whether they're small mom and pop shop, or, these large, huge, I mean, like hospitals and stuff, everybody is getting regulated to oblivion. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, even if they were initially Democrats, I think people are waking up, and I think the pendulum is going to swing. So do not give up. Also, I'm here if anybody wants to reach out. I can't guarantee that I'm going to respond within 24 hours, but
Fair.
I will definitely be reading all of the messages and responding when I can. But you can always contact me on my website. Also, feel free to sign up for my newsletter. Like I said, my new website, it should be up and ready to go tomorrow. And you can sign up for the newsletter there, and I'll keep you guys posted on everything that I'm doing. You could donate. And if you can't do either, you can't volunteer, you can't donate, then share. It's greatly appreciated. Also, one last thing, shout out to Teddy and Roe from Spartan Defense for letting us use your facility. It's greatly appreciated. Really nice,
Yeah.
really nice place here. So,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
just for YouTube, these are not real. This is just a backdrop. So
Yeah.
don't do anything crazy with this video, please. Uh, Ava, I mean, there's a couple of things I want to just say before we close out really quick. So, one, folks, we talk about needing to get, transparent elections and honest elections here in Colorado. And we know what's going on between the Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, and the Trump administration of the Department of Justice. Colorado is currently being sued. I don't know if we're ever going to see the honest truth about what happened in the previous elections, but in the last election, we did pick up 3 House seats. And I think going forth, we probably will see some federal oversight of any elections going on here in Colorado when there's federal elections going on, which means I think in this next election, your vote is truly going to count. So we need you to get out there, and we need you to vote, and we need you to get other people to get up off the couch and vote, and pair that with the fact that the Democrat Party here in Colorado is breaking and fissuring into 2 massive factions right now. I think that we really do have a good chance to pick up some seats here. And I made a video about it. I don't know how possible it's going to be, but if we can get a Republican governor and we can pick up some House and some Senate seats, we can use that to actually get some of our rights back. So you might have heard Representative Flanell say, I don't know if I want to introduce a gun bill this year. It makes sense because currently this year, there is no change to the House or Senate structure as far as the seats go for Republican or Democrat. And we saw what they were doing last year. Expect the same thing this year. I had Teddy on. We talked about what to expect from anti-2A bills. But where we can see a big difference is going into 2027. We are currently in 2026. This is the election year. This is Polis's last year as our governor. And this is what's going to matter because next year, those that are elected this year will be able to make a difference in the 2027 legislative session. And we've heard the statement, you know, it's always darkest before the dawn.
Mhm.
Well, dawn is at 2027 legislative session. So let's get ready and buckle in. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but we've got some hope with people like Representative Flanell right here and others that maybe we're not aware of. But I have a good feeling about this, Colorado. So thank you for coming on, Ava, so much. And as always, everybody, let's get to work. Woo! Wolverines!